I've got a good one for you today. My man James Spicer, who does in the Riffle website and also manages ours and is responsible for all these all the editing on these videos, mentioned that I don't have a baby boy hopper video, and it's true, I don't. So I'm going to tell you a baby boy hopper, and this is a tiny skinny version of the Charlie boy hopper, and there are definitely some tricks to tie in this one. So I'm going to show you how to tie it. This is a very small little hopper. In the early spring, you see those tiny little hoppers flitting around, and they're usually pretty bright green. You can tie this in all kinds of colors. All black is good for a cricket as well. But I'm going to tie this on a size 14, and the hook I've got in front of me right now is a 2499 SPBL. So that's a short shank hook with a wide gap, which is ideal for what we want to do here with this fly. So I've got a piece of Chartreuse foam, 2 millimeters thick, 2 millimeters that way, and about 2/3 of a hook gap, 3/4 of a hook gap. And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take my hook point and poke it through the foam right in the center, an inch or so from the end. And the inch part is very loose. You don't need that much room, but I like to leave myself some slack. So I've just got that threaded on the hook like so. Okay. Let's take this down a bit so we don't have quite so much glare on there. Might be a little better. Now I've got some olive Dun 8/0 uni thread. 14/0 Vivus would work also. You just want something that will contrast. And this spool of thread's a little hanky, so hopefully it doesn't blow up during this video. It's got a loose end that ain't supposed to be there. But I'm going to start the thread just behind the eye. I'm going to make a thread base all the way back to about where the barb would be. If I let the thread hang down, about where the barb would be. Then I've got another scrap of foam here, and this is just about 2 by 2 millimeters. And I'm going to use this as a gluing surface. So just like a regular Charlie boy, I'm going to tie this down just up behind the eye here. If I can catch it, there we go. And then cross hatch back over it. And that's just going to give us some surface area on the hook. And I can trim that piece off. Now I want to leave my thread hanging back here at the bend just off of that foam. I'm going to draw my piece of foam under the hook and slide it up the bend right to the end of that binder strip. And you can see that this piece of foam will now elevate and be lifted up above, up above the bend. So now I'm going to measure where the hook eye lines up, and I'm going to poke a hole through that foam with the tips of my scissors. And I like to go through both sides here and poke the hook eye through that hole. So the hook eye is now sticking out there. And I assure you that little stub of foam that's sticking out is not near as big as it seems. So now I'm going to take a little bit of Zapagap, and I want just a thin coat over that binder strip, up each side of the foam, and up the extended portion here. And you can use a scrap of foam to sort of smear that around and get that evenly distributed. And now with the thread hanging back here at the bend, I'm going to fold this foam back from front to back, and when I get back here I want to keep that back end elevated. So I should maintain this curve. And really I'm only worried about the glue grabbing the piece that's beyond the hook. You can actually see that is not grabbing on the shank. That's not a big deal. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create the first segment. So I'm going to bring the thread all the way around and tighten it down about 3 times. Then I'll cross forward about 1/3 of the way and make another segment. Cross forward one more time and make another segment. Like so. Now I'm going to come in with a double-edged razor blade, and I'm going to slide this straight through the end of the body here. And that'll give me a little, what looks like an angled cut, but it is a straight cut. Now the remaining foam hanging off the back of the hook here is a little wider than I like it to be. So I'm going to come in with my scissors and just cut that to a taper. Not to a point per se, but just to a taper. Like so. And now I'm going to come in with my legs. Now, what I've got here is just a single strand of medium round rubber legs. These are Chartreuse green. And I'm going to tie an overhand knot. Pull that knot down good and tight. I'm going to do that to 2 pieces. So just an overhand knot, pull them down tight, and that's going to make our knee. Now when I go to tie this leg in, I'm going to catch on my near side here, I'm going to catch the front end of the leg in the first segment with a couple turns of thread. Then I'll cross my thread back to the second segment and catch it again, like so. Now I'll take my other leg and get the knees about even. Excuse me. Whew. Tie that other leg in on the other side. Never had that happen. I'll bring my thread forward to the next segment and catch that front leg with a couple more turns. Now, very often, see how those legs are not exactly lined up perfectly even like we'd like them to be? Very often that is the case. Here's how you line them up. If you, like this far leg, I'd like this bottom end kind of sticking down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll the end of this leg in my fingers. You can see I'm just twisting it up. So I'm going to roll it in my fingers and I'm going to pull on it. And as I do that, that twist will work through and move the leg in position. I'm going to do the same thing on this near side and just pull on it a bit. Sometimes you might need to pull a lot to get them lined up. If you end up with one leg shorter than the other but positioned nicely, just don't do the twist. And you can sort of reposition them. You can sort of do this back and forth. Let me exaggerate this a bit. You can see with a long leg there, if I twist this leg and pull, he'll turn all the way around by the time I get him down to length. I'm just pushing that twist through till I get him where I want him, which is just about right there, like so. So I've got the legs lined up. And that's how you do these crafty little legs. So now I'm going to line those knees up again, and I'm going to cut those back legs short. You know, keep in mind this is a tiny little hopper, and I'll leave the front legs as they are for the moment. So now I'm going to take a little clump of deer hair, and it's not, you don't need much. This is a small little fly, but you want something with fine tips. Clean it out real well, and put it in your hair stacker. Give it a few taps to clean it up. About like so. Okay, I'm going to take that bunch of hair and I'm going to measure it about a hook length long, maybe just a touch longer than a hook length. And I'm going to cut the butt ends off just as square as I can so that I've got it pre-cut in my fingertips. I said square, and that's not terribly square. We're going to clean that up a bit. There we go. Now I'm going to take my thread and spin it a bit. I'm going to lay those butt ends about halfway up the foam head, and I'll put 2 turns around the thread, around the hair. Then I'm going to pull down and flare that hair in place. And you can see that hair flares into the crease on top of the fly. And then we're going to whip finish right through those butt ends. It just takes a couple turns. Nip that thread out. I'm going to trim these front legs short. And there, my friends, is a baby boy hopper. But the piece that he's missing, which all hoppers need, is a couple of eyeballs. So I'm just going to use this Copic marker and dot some eyes in here on the sides of the head, like so. And that is our finished baby boy hopper. Tiny little hopper. There's my fingertip. You can see how little he is. But just a perfect little baby boy hopper. This is great for early season, picky fish that are getting a little jaded, even during the summer months. Throwing a little tiny hopper, everybody else on earth is throwing a big one. Throwing a little tiny hopper can oftentimes be the difference that it needs to be. This and a parachute hopper are both great choices for something like that. So there's my baby boy hopper. I hope you like that one. I'm glad James reminded me to put this on there. I think that came out pretty good. All right, there you go. Hope you guys have a good day. Thanks for watching.